Die Sprachübertragung beginnt jetzt. Alle Teilnehmer befinden sich im Zuhörermodus.
Good day, I must say, I think, at this time of the day. So for some of you, good morning. For some of you already in the after lunch, I'd say. We will wait another few seconds for everyone to join, and then we continue. Looks like the joining has slowed down, so great. Yeah, so again, welcome to our webinar today, the first one after the summer break. My name is Renard. I'm your webinar host today, and the topic to discuss is ESP, multi-factor options on the LoadMaster, and also the LoadMaster WAF and how that will assist you with your PCI DSS compliance. I brought 39 slides. And of course, this webinar is recorded and will be placed on YouTube into our English-speaking Technical Kemping webinar channel again. Feel free to ask questions. You can also utilize the chat if you like. I will try to answer on the fly if I can. If there are after the webinar still unanswered questions, I will answer them, and with the wrap-up email that will be sent out, you will get the answers then. Okay. Yeah, first of all, we will provide some updates for the Technical Kemping and channel in general. Then the first topic will be WAF and PCI DSS compliance. And the second topic will be ESP with MFA options. If I'm quicker than the hour and there are no questions, I will give you the remaining time back for your day. Afterwards, there will be a little questionnaire, at least that's what I've been told. So please answer the questions, that would be great. It helps me to put more effort into this webinars and make them more streamlined and better for you. The deck will be shipped out as well, so you will get the deck as well. Just for your information, on November 11th, the next webinar will be taking place, and the topic will be LoadMaster landing page, or how to do WebTop, similar stuff to WebTop if you use other load balancer solutions. Also on LoadMaster and LoadMaster routing. So that's the topic for the next time. And I already put in the date for January. On January 16th, we will host another webinar then for 2026, sorry. Additionally, just for your information, maybe you're interested, there will be a Progress Kemp Certified Technical Engineer training class happen on September 23rd to 24th. So far, I have 9 participants, but I'm able to put up to 12 in. So if there's interest, let us know. So I still have 3 spots available for that class on the 23rd, 24th. Afterwards, there will be more, but I'm still in finding the dates kind of situation. So there will be more to come, but this is now the one that I can share right now. I also added all the past webinars and the YouTube links to them into the deck. So I also did that for the last one from May. And in November, you will see the YouTube link for the meeting today. To my person, again, the name is Renard. I'm based in Germany, principal pre-sales engineer for LoadMaster products. Since January this year, I also do Flowmon and WhatsApp Gold, and my regions mainly are DACH, Benelux, and France. All the other regions are covered by my colleague Mike, yeah, we are the 2 engineers for all of Europe. But if one of us is out of the office, the other one will cover. So if Mike is not there because he's in holidays, you can come to me and I'm helping you, even though you might be in a region that I don't cover primarily. That's no problem. So just for your information on that. I'm always searching for new topics. So if you have any suggestions, feel free, put them in the chat or by email afterwards. If you have special use cases or customer requests that you are searching for a solution and you were not able to find one, let us know. We are happy to help. If there's a LoadMaster product or maybe a combination of products that will help you for that use case, we'd like to find out and discuss that with you. Maybe there's a way to help you on that specific case. All right. That concludes my channel update. And now let's start with the general topic. LoadMaster WAF and how can it help me with my PCI DSS? What is PCI DSS? It is a payment card industry data security standard. Wow, pretty long word. The first version of it was actually established in 2004. And it is a security standard to ensure that credit card data and payment data is secured properly. Now, recently, with recently I mean, I think April last year it was, they updated that standard, and there were some differences to the past standard established, and they simply say that you need to be if you want to remain compliant, you need to meet new and updated requirements. All right, and they actually say that either you need to make sure your code is completely secure, or you need to use a WAF. So that was the past standard. Now, since 31st of March last year, they say you need to have a WAF no matter what. And how would that work? I'm just showing that on the MoveIt IT servers, just as an example. You have genuine users and you have attackers that go through and try to penetrate your server landscape. And a web application firewall would be able to look into that traffic and define or find out, okay, who is actually doing something naughty. And it will help you to prevent those traffic to reach your server. You see here, there's only green, so the WAF will filter that out. Where is your WAF located in your environment? Where would it make sense? So you have your network firewall, properly your external firewall, you have a DMZ lab, you have a host firewall, and you have also your application and so on. So the WAF makes the most sense between your DMZ and your host. Before the traffic hits your host, that's where you should position a WAF normally. It will monitor your traffic, it will block malicious requests, and it would make attacks more difficult, let's say that way. So you raise the bar with it. I also listed out the different PCI DSS requirements that are stated in that new standard. And I also noted which products or features on the LoadMaster would help you to get those extrally secured, right? So maintain a firewall configuration. So that's what the WAF is doing. Yep. Protect your cardholder data. That's also what your WAF is doing by taking out malicious requests in the first place. Then make sure that you have everything encrypted. That's what you do with a reverse proxy. So that's what you use the LoadMaster in the first place for. protect against malware. So that's what you do with the WAF as well, with the OWASP. So you protect against the OWASP top 10. And requirement 7, restrict the cardholder data. So you can do that by strict transport security headers, content rules, pre-authentication, and WAF, depending on your application you're hosting. Then identify and authenticate your system components. That's the ESP feature. Physical access should be restricted. So that's what you use a reverse proxy for. And to track and monitor all the network resources, that's again ESP and WAF. And of course, the LoadMaster can export all the traffic that goes through him via IPFix data to network monitoring tools like Flowmon. So you can utilize the LoadMaster there as well. So as you can see, multiple of those requirements, the load balancer can, in some shape or form, assist you to ensure your PCI DSS requirements and compliance. And I also added some links from our end to have some stuff to read through as well for that. Okay. I know that was quick. That was one of the shorter topics. The longer topic will be the MFA options, and I believe that's actually what you signed up for today. So that's the second topic. How do I utilize the ESP options on the LoadMaster to do multi-factor authentications? Now, for that topic, first of all, it's vital to understand how does ESP work in the first place. So ESP is responsible for your pre-authentication. You could establish a single sign-on, right? It goes through the LoadMaster as a reverse proxy, and you can also do two-factor authentication. So that's bullet points, all great. It was originally designed as the alternative for the TMG. That was the LoadMaster solution or load balancer solution from Microsoft. That was there, that had the single sign-on and the pre-authentication capability. How does it work? The requests come in. We check, is that user already authenticated, yes or no? If not, we collect information, username, password, token, whatever you have selected. We pass it on to an authentication provider. They need to give us an answer. Is it okay or is it not okay? And only if it's okay, then the connection to the actually backend system is established. Okay. That could also work with a mixture of authentication providers. So you could redirect to AWS or Azure if you use SAML or OIDC protocols. You could use local identity providers like LDAP, LDAP-S or Radius, or you use RSA Secure ID. All of those are possible. It could be a custom login form with username and password. It could be a challenge that is requested afterwards. It could also be a custom page with 3 or 4 fields where you have the token already at the initial phase. It could be client certificate that is read and then checked against LDAP for the information in it. So it could be multiple different things. And only if the authentication provider gives the go-ahead, only then the way to the application is free. Now, on the LoadMaster side, just to have a list, how can we verify the credentials? So we use LDAP in all different variations. So that's LDAP, LDAP-S, LDAP with start TLS, global catalog S. So that's all LDAP. Then you could use Radius. Radius could be used also in 2 modi. So the first modi will be I'm sending username and password to Radius. Radius makes a decision, do I want to challenge, yes or no? A challenge could be a token that you need to enter afterwards. It could also trigger through whatever provider is behind, trigger a warning on your phone and you need to use a fingerprint to confirm, right? anything of that, that would be radius only. RSA secure ID in my regions is not that often used, so I can't go into much detail on that because my regions just don't use that too often. But that is similar to radius. You can use username, password, and token on that part. Client certificates are checked against LDAP, but we can do that as well. And you can do a combination. We call this dual factor authentication. Dual factor authentication means I'm talking to two authentication providers, and both of them need to, independent from another, need to tell me, yep, your journey can go ahead. So this way it would be radius and LDAP, or RSA secure ID and LDAP. And the way that works, you have 4 fields right at the beginning to enter. You can steam it down to 3 if you want to. But what it does here is it collects username and token that will be sent to radius to confirm. So rather than doing a challenge on radius, it just wants username and token. And for the LDAP part, it's collecting username and password. And when radius said username and token was a success, then the request goes to LDAP for username and password as well. And if that was also a success, then we can continue on and fill out to the server username and password as well to pass it on to the server. Right. Then, as I mentioned before, there are those external service provider options. So you can use SAML to go to Azure or to go to ADFS. That means the LoadMaster never was in the possession of the password in the first place. It kind of only has the username, and it knows the user wanted to do SAML or OIDC, one of them, and it directed to that provider directly. You get authenticated with that provider, and you come back through the LoadMaster, and we then just verify the token you came back with. But that means we have never seen the password in the first place. So, which is great, but on the other hand, it's also bad, because if my application server wants the password, the LoadMaster can't provide it because we never had it. So SAML and OIDC work that way. You could technically use Azure via radius. So that means I can do radius only with username, password, and all the Azure two-factor authentication then challenged afterwards. So that means you would kind of move out of this bracket and you come back in here. That means that we have username and password and can pass it on. Okay. When you create a client-side authentication on the LoadMaster itself, you have some security measures you can also put in place. For example, you can set how many times how often can a client log in wrongly in a certain time frame, and when that threshold is reached, how long will he be blocked, all right, or she be blocked. So here in this case, 3 failed attempts within a minute causes half an hour blockage. That's the default value. Most of the time, this value here is shorter than your AD to make sure your AD never gets blocked. And even if you are behind an attack, that one of your workers is getting bombarded with a brute force attack from externally, you want to make sure they get blocked on the external part on the load balancer, but internally the AD stays free, so your worker can continue to work without issues, right? Sorry. All right. And you could make decisions if the user selected private or public, if there's a difference in how long is it the token they've created, how long does it last, right? So as you see with idle time, the default values is both of them 900, so the question doesn't make sense in the first place. But for example, with a max duration, there's a significant difference. So that's what this setting is for. What ways can a client now authenticate for my applications that I have on the load balancer? So you could use delegate to server. That means the LoadMaster doesn't do any pre-authentication. It's simply checking for the allowed hosts and the allowed directory. Okay, and it logs the traffic, who is talking, who's coming in, and so on. Then, of course, you have form-based. You can create your own image sets. I did a webinar on that before, where we request username, password, maybe afterwards the challenge, or in a for form, username, token, username, password. Come on, sorry. Then you can use client certificates. That means on your 443 service, you already say mandatory, you need to bring a client certificate to connect in the first place, and then the option will be available. Right now you see here it's grayed out because I haven't fulfilled all the requirements. But if I would have requested a client certificate for the initial health check in the first place, then this would be also usable. We can use basic, very often used for active sync and stuff like that, because that's always sending a basic authentication header. We could use NTLM, and then also SAML and OIDC. And you can make that decision for each application, for each time you do ESP and enable it. You can make the decision what you want to use. On the server side, so server authentication means if your application server also needs user credentials to open the application in the first place. So there we have some options to pass information on. None means we don't send any username, password information on. If SAML or OIDC was used, we would send the token that the user got. We would pass that on. But we can't fill out any form with username and password or something like that. Basic means we send out the basic authentication header. Form-based means we fill out the form-based form of your application. For example, Exchange. There is a second authentication form after you went through the LoadMaster, your application pops up, but we send a post to that so that will be filled out so your user does not see that in the first place. So username and password is pre-filled out and the second prompt is never visible. So that's what is meant with form-based. KCD stands for Kerberos Constraint Delegation. So we request a Kerberos ticket for that user and we pass the Kerberos ticket on to the server. And server token was introduced with the Citrix storefront authentication methods, that there is a specific token sent to the backend system. When you do ESP, you get extra locks. There are 3 extra locks for ESP. There's a specific hard drive piece for your ESP. Actually, the ESP locks are the biggest for a partition on your hard drive on the LoadMaster in the first place, bigger than the normal locks, to be honest. And you have 3 different locks. One is user access, my personal highlight, because you find out what user IP with what port came to my VIP in the first place, what was the username he tried to authenticate, was it successful, was it not successful, and if it was successful, what kind of directory did they go to, what user agent string was in there, and when have they been locked out, or if they were not successful locking in the first place, when have they been blocked. You see all of those information. I personally like that log very much. Security, these are logs, for example, the client came to my VIP with a host name that was not on my allowed list. And I sent out a 403 access denied. Or they came with a directory that was not on my list of allowed directories, and I sent out access denied. You also find in these logs if your authentication provider, so your LDAP dies, right? The LoadMaster can't talk to the LDAP server anymore. There will be a message in that log that your authentication provider is not reachable anymore. And connections for 443, I think it's not that useful, but for stuff like SMTP, where you can also enable ESP, there it's pretty cool. You find out what source IP went to my VIP and to what server was it sent to. So that's pretty nice. For SMTP and protocols like that, I really like it. For 443, because I have the info here already, I think it's, not that useful, but everyone needs to make that decision themselves. So that's, first of all, the background of ESP in the first place. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the options. So let's look into radius. So when you select radius as authentication protocol, you need to set in a radius server or multiple servers. You need to enter a shared secret because the LoadMaster need to be in the radius server, need to be set as a client, and you need to select set a certain secret. So we need that. You could use a NAS identifier if you have that set up, if you need that. It's not mandatory, but you can. And then you need to put in your domain RAM just to make sure all the normalization is correct. Radius operates on UDP port 1812. And I don't have an option to change that anyhow. It's UDP 1812. Now, again, there are multiple different use cases. So normally you would say, okay, I send username and password to Radius, and if Radius is set that way, there could be a challenge, or if that user doesn't need a challenge, then there won't be a challenge. You could connect your Radius to other providers like Duo, LinOTP, Write SMS, or even Azure if you want to. And this works with Radius alone, works with a single provider form-based form, so the default form-based form. If you're using dual authentication, it will be username and token to Radius and username and password to LDAP. And if the username is the same, you could, by default, it's a 4-field form because it could be a different username for Radius than for LDAP. But if they are the same, you could actually build a 3-field form where you just put in username, password, token. And this is how it looks. So your client goes through your firewall to the virtual service. The load balancer then talks to the Radius server with username and password, right? The Radius server will check that against the AD server if username and password are correct, and would very likely show a challenge, but that would be too many errors here. You put in the token, and that would then be checked. So in this case, it's Azure, so you check username and password, and then Azure very likely does a fingerprint kind of stuff. And once all of this, both of them are satisfied, Radius will tell the LoadMaster, yes, you can continue on. And now the connection to the web server is established, and the answer will be showing up on the client device. So that's how Radius works. Just a sample, so this is what a 3-field could look like. So that's a customer logo, and you could have a tree form with username, password, token. In this tree form, there's also the Google authentication, or those kind of things. Click on all the hydrants and so on. That's also possible. That can be utilized too. Here's a sample with Duo integration, just to have that in as well. So username password is selected in our form. We pass that on. And then the Radius is going through the Duo authentication, establishing the token. You see that multiple things involved, and then afterwards is checking username and password to LDAP, and you continue to your application. RSA Secure ID, as I mentioned before, is similar. It can create a token or an SMS and stuff like that, and you need to import, or you put in your server, and you need to import the config files and the secret file. So rather than filling it out like with Radius, you import those files here from your RSA server, and then that will kick off. The bottom part here, as you see, is the same as with LDAP or Radius. Now for SAML. SAML is asking you to give multiple information. So you need to get the entry ID, you need to put in your SSO URL and logoff URL, and you need to assign a certificate, actually 2. One is your SAML certificate and one is your Kemp signing certificate, which you need to import to SAML. And if you fill all of that out, then you can utilize SAML very well. Similar works with OIDC. OIDC is just a lightweight of SAML. Right now, we have that validated with Azure. We are working on others, but it's a slow process, to be honest. So right now, that works totally fine with Azure, and on the other fronts, we are still testing. Now, how does that look like? You connect to the load balancer. You want to do OIDC or SAML. We directly redirect you to that identity provider, either SAML or OIDC. You get authenticated there, and then you come in again through the load balancer. This time you have your token, and we just verify that the token is correct, and then you get access to your applications. I also put in a different picture for that. So just to see where is the communication going, who is talking where. So client request comes, you get redirected, you go directly to your ID provider, you do your authentication there, come back with an authentication code. We validate that code, and once that's validated, we could pass you on maybe with a KCD ticket because we never had the password username combination in the first place. This is what a filled out OIDC auth would look like. So you get within Azure, you get your application ID. You get all of those details for your endpoint token, and you get all of those directly in your endpoint list. There's a list you can select. I'll show you that in a second. You set an application secret. You need to provide that to the load balancer because he needs to connect securely to verify that the token is right. And that's actually it. Pretty straightforward. I did provide you here with some documents as well on how those things work. And now I wanted to do some live demo on this. So let's have a look, and hopefully my demo lab does not do something nasty to me today. So I did change loads of stuff recently, so let's do this all very, very straightforward. So I'm taking this application here that makes the most sense. So this application right now does not have any pre-authentication. So let's just go there, and we see there's no pre-authentication. So there you go. I'm connected straight away. I get this yellow page telling me if I'm on app 1 or app 2, and there's no authentication cookie or anything. I can go there directly. Now, I have multiple different authentication providers here. So we have LDAP. You see, I have LDAP endpoint. There is LDAP S behind my LDAP endpoint, to be honest, and we can use LDAP. So that's the first thing we utilize. I'm now going to my application and tell my application, hey, I want to do pre-authentication with LDAP, and this is the hostname that's allowed. All directories are allowed. I want a normal image set. And no, I don't want to capture. I don't know why I turned that on. And I don't send anything to the back. You saw my server here a second ago. He didn't want any authentication in the first place, so I don't need to pass anything to him. Now let's have a look. Okay, I cannot get to my application directly. I get an image set, or I get the custom form right now. I need to put in details. So user 1 and the password. And only after pre-authentication, I get to my backend page. And you also see there's now an LM data cookie because I got pre-authenticated on the load balancer. Now there's a cookie that I have been authenticated in the first place. Good. In my SSO domain, I can now see here in the sessions, yes, user 1 has been authenticated from that client, was sent to this application server, and you see it's expiring after 15 minutes, so that's correct. If I would be idle, it would expire. In the logs, I can also see that if I have not, I'm using LoadMaster 360, so it's all in the cloud, to be honest. Let's turn this off. So we see some logs. I'm just doing a refresh here just to show you some of the logs. There you go. And down here should be the log from today. There we are. So, nope, not yet. Come on. I do too much testing. Okay, we keep it in mind. We do some other authentication methods. We should fill the log in a few seconds. Okay, now let's log off. There you go. I was successfully logged off. Technically, I should see that in the logs as well. Now, finally, so you see the user has logged off. So now the log is writing. Okay, let's change this now. I have a radius here. It's on a different server, so let me connect to that server in a second, because I want to make sure that my write SMS is running. That's my application behind, to make sure radius is able to do MFA. No questions so far. Wow. This is a free third-party tool, so as this lab is powering down and on all the time, this one is a bit cranky. You see, there we go. My test would have run into an issue. So let me get this to life, and then I can show you the radius. Powering down and on servers is just not too healthy. So I changed the config file, and don't ask me why, but this helps. Now it's running. Okay, so what happens is my radius is, here's a radius client on it, so just normal NPS, and he's connecting to this third-party tool, and in that third-party tool, I can select what authentication methods token should be used, and I've enabled Google Authenticator here in the backend. Now, so back to our application. So I'm now using radius, and let's assign this. Come to me. We assign now radius as authentication option. I stay with the same image set. That's totally fine. And we connect again. Here we go. So same image set. I'm now putting in administrator, password. And now he asked me for a challenge. And now give me a second. I need to take my mobile phone and hopefully have the right one, because I have two of them here in my list, and I hope I'm using the right one now. If not, it will fail. but that looks good. So that was username, password, afterwards challenge. So the radius only option, okay? And we got authenticated, and you can also see again in your SSO, yes, we have been authenticated through that channel. In my logs, I should actually see that too. There you go. You see on this VIP, the user administrator used radius. Here's my radius IP. And with two-factor and the authentication was correctly, he came from this client and he connected to this, this page coming from this user agent. Right. Nice. Pretty happy. So that's good so far. Okay. Now, let's enable, and I hope it's running here on my domain controller. I also have this because I'm using two different radius servers. I wanted to show you both options. So hopefully he will start the application here. If not, I need to do the same trick. Yeah, you little nasty thing, you. Okay, bear with me the second. That's why this third-party tool is great for your lab, but for production environment, I would not recommend it. It's not a paid solution, to be honest, so it could do some naughty things. But for the lab, it's pretty good to test it out. Right. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Now, this radio server is my domain controller, right? So the .20 we had, just to confirm this with you, this was 23, and now I'm going to different one, which is this one here. So this is 20. This is my domain controller. So I'm now doing radius and LDAP in combination. So this radius does not do username, password, and challenge. It does only username and token, and username password gets sent to the LDAP endpoint. Okay, so that's why I'm enabling this now, just to show you the difference. So we use our application we used all along. Now I'm selecting dual factor, and I also need to change my image set. So it could be the default image set, right? That would be this one, just for you to see that. That looks like that. I don't like it. I also did one with a custom logo. So that would be form with a custom logo. Okay, in green, custom logo. So you have a username for radius and a passcode, and you have the username for LDAP and the password. What you can do, and I can help you with that as well, if the username is the same for both of them, you could actually make one of the fields invisible and fill out the information in there with the data you collect here. And that could then look like a tree form. And that will look like this. Okay. And now let's do this. So administrator again, password, and I now need my Google Authenticator again, but this time the other guy, the other list here. And I fill all of this out in one go, and first radius is spoken to and authenticated, and then LDAP is spoken to, and I now did a multi-factor authentication, and we can see that in the logs as well. There you see. Radius and LDAP both told me, yes, authentication was successful, and I got logged in. And also in my SSO domain, you see now, yep, that guy was logged in properly. Okay. Wow, still no questions on your end. Interesting. Let's take it another step further. Where did I do OIDC? I think here, Oreo. So it's a different VIP, but it's the same target server. So what I do here? I'm doing authentication in Azure. Okay. So you need to log into Azure first, and then you get authenticated. So let's have a look. Open this up, and we see how it works with Azure. Sorry, before we do that, just for you to see, there's no authentication so far for this. And what have I filled out? You see the application ID, my endpoint and token URLs, the logoff string, and the secret was set. Now I see a question. David, I will read it out in a second. Let me just finish my thought here. I'll be right back with you. So you see, I went to the LoadMaster, now got redirected to Azure, and here I can log in with my Azure information. So and you see I get to my own company single sign-on, which very likely, if I don't have a misspelling, give me a second, bear with me. Yeah. And now I need to wait for the phone to ring and to type in the key. It takes us a little while. Sometimes it's the key, sometimes it's the fingerprint. So not sure why it's not triggering. Ah, here we go. 97 fingerprint. And there we go. All right. Now, so I got authenticated. What we see here now is an error that very likely my secret I have used is already outdated. To log in there and check that out. But yeah, let's have a look in Azure how that is generally set up. So let's have a look. Come on, look into Azure. Oh, come on. Yeah. While I'm typing this, I'm going back to David's question. So let me read it out. If Google Authenticator is used, how is the token registered initially with a user account? When I wrote this in my current system, I had to provide a secret. Ah, I see. Okay. Look, I'm using this third-party tool, WriteSMS, and I can go in here for each user so it's synchronized with all my user data, right? I can go in here and say I want to use Google Authenticator. And once I do that, I get the little the secret, the picture you can use in Google Authenticator to sign on, and then you have your username and the stuff in Google. So that will generate the secret, and you get the little the little picture to scan. So this is what write SMS is doing for me here in this case. That's it. Does that answer your question, David? So the LoadMaster doesn't really care, right? It's just collecting the numbers you put in, and the NPS is passing that on here in this case to my write SMS tool, and he is decoding it and make sure that matches my requirements or the exact the secrets and the stuff. So it would. So when you save this, you get the picture, and you can provide that. Okay. Now going back. Sorry for that detour now, but I wanted to answer the question. So let me try to log into my Azure again. 42. Yeah, I want to be in. It's okay. All right. Okay. Now, within Azure, what you need to do for OIDC is you have your application registration. And I had, for the masterclass at one stage, I did the OIDC, and I think, hopefully it's right, just for me to confirm this, bear with me. Yes, you see Oreo is in there, so that's great. At the time I built that for every account, right? So that means any external person can also utilize, as soon as they have a cloud account, they can log in. So that was my setting, but you can do that for your own application. Now, why was it not working? I guess, come on, load this now. I guess my secret is very likely expired. Nope. Okay, in that case, we just renew that. That's fine. So I believe my secret is not okay anymore. So let's create a new one. 6 months is fine. Description, come on. Description. There we go. Now my secret. And in my LoadMaster, I just paste it in. The thing is, you need to be quick. The secret will be in the cloud. It will disappear, and you only see it like this. And then if you don't have it properly saved somewhere, yeah, you're doomed. It will not come up anymore. It is gone. You can't retrieve it. You need to create a new one. So just to be aware of that. And that's actually it. So you need a secret. You need to put in your redirect URL where the journey should go back. So Oreo is in here. And then you have your application ID there. So we can just make sure that this is the same application ID I have in my application here. Just put it in there for now. So that means, yeah, it's not exactly the same ID. So maybe that was the reason. So let's put in the ID there. That's my application ID. So we have the secret and the application ID correct. And in endpoints, you get all the links you need for your OIDC part. So you see the endpoint URL and the token endpoint URL. They are definitely matching what I have in here. So now let's try this again. Shall we? very likely because I'm already authenticated. Yeah, because I'm already in the cloud here. I'm now through. So I was logged in. I came from Microsoft, which is correct. I was redirected back. And in my application, I should now see that I'm authenticated. There you go. So yeah, that worked. Because I was already authenticated with Azure in the first place, I was going into my application directly. So that's single sign-on for you, live in action. Yeah, that's the way how that works. Great. That does conclude my demonstration. Sorry for the long time, because now I can only give you 4 minutes back of your day. Sorry for that. I hope it filled in all your questions, or at least it piqued your interest. If you have further questions, just send them on by email to me or in the questionnaire afterwards, or to the person that sends you the presentation. It was great having you here today, and I wish you a good weekend. Bye-bye, guys.